Hi folks, welcome to Set Apart Homestead. This is Travis and Rivka. And thank you for stopping by and watching our little show here on YouTube. If you would like, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Like the video if you like it. No pressure though. Share it around because YouTube more and more is not liking the content that I put out, and they're doing their best to keep it keep you from seeing it. I've gotten a lot of people commenting that were subscribers that are finding out that somehow they're now unsubscribed to the channel, or they're just not seeing my videos. So if you could share that around, we would sure appreciate it. Today I want to talk about, or we want to talk about, being meat self-sufficient on a homestead. You know, there's always a lot of focus when it comes to homesteading, and when I say homesteading for this video, I'm talking about whether you're in the city or out in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. I don't care. If you're trying to live self-sufficient, if you're trying to do more and more things on your own, okay, that's what, for today's video, that's what homesteading is. There's always a big focus on growing your own food, and I talk about that a lot. But there's the other type of food that a lot of people eat, and that's meat. And I understand that some of you may not eat meat, and that's fine if you don't. But today I want to talk about being meat self-sufficient on a homestead in your life, and that I want to challenge you that it's a lot easier than you might think. Maybe even easier than raising food, vegetable type foods. And in today's world, even if you're not going to be completely self-sufficient, meaning that every bit of your meat is completely grown, raised type food, even if it's not that way, you can certainly supplement your diet greatly with raising your own food, raising your own meat. But even if you're just supplementing your diet, your meat portion of your diet with the food that you raise, or protein, I would argue that it's a lot easier and cheaper than you might think. And if you look at what's going on with this world, which is absolutely crazy, I make lots of videos on that, of just the craziness that's happening in the world. They're burning down, everything, and tearing up things and tearing stuff down, and it just seems like everything's in chaos right now, and it really is. We live in very uncertain times. One of the things that's been affected by what's happened between, over the last 6 months is the price of meat. We don't even buy meat in the store, but I've seen people talk about just plain old hamburger that's selling for $7 and $8 a pound. Just plain hamburger, not grass fed, not sirloin, ground sirloin, anything, just plain hamburger, $7, $8 a pound. It's absolutely crazy how much meat costs. And then if you trying to get the better quality meat, something that's more organic or grass-fed or whatever, well, my goodness, you might as well just sell one of your children and try to buy it, because it's that expensive. It's crazy. And so you can raise really good quality, not that cheap junky chicken and cheap beef that you don't even know where it came from and how it was raised. You can raise really good quality meat here on your homestead, and depending on what you do, it may not take that much room. I mean, even in a backyard in many cities now, they allow you to raise chickens, so you can certainly at least supplement your diet with that. And you were wanting to talk about chickens and poultry and stuff.
That's a main source for our protein. Eggs, and then the meat that comes from the chickens. And I just wanted to say that if you have a backyard even, it doesn't require a whole lot of room. You just need a little bit of a run and a chicken coop to house your chickens, and it needs to be secure, obviously. But even if you had five chickens, 5 layers, you're going to get about 25 eggs a week, which is quite a bit. And then if you would like to raise your own, hatch them out, or purchase meat chickens separately, they're like, we have heritage breed chickens for our layers. We have 15 layers and two
Two roosters, yeah.
two boys, and you know, it kind of works for us. And then we also have, right now we're raising 25 the Cornish cross hens for meat, just to kind of get us started. But you know, eventually we're going to hatch these little girls that we have. They're just about ready to start laying, and
yeah, they're offspring next year.
right, their offspring next year we'll hatch out ourselves to keep some for meat, and then of course maybe some more layers.
Yeah.
And
Because the chickens that we have, they're a good dual purpose breed. You know, they're a heavy layer, so they make a good meat chicken also.
the kids love them.
Yeah,
They're really
there's
sweet.
that
We have
enjoyment factor of just having them. You know?
4 Australorp girls, our little layers, and they're super friendly. The kids love
Yeah,
them.
they're
They get up
like
on
pets.
your shoulders and your arms, and they're fun. And then also though, the well summers are super friendly too. They're not, you know, aggressive or mean or anything. The kids just love watching them. We also have ducks, and we're not sure yet how many layers.
Yeah, they're still young, so you know, there may be some boys in there, but there'll definitely be some girls. So there'll be layers there, and these are a good laying breed. They lay just about as many eggs a year as a chicken, a good laying chicken.
And about how big is our coop? It's 8 by 8.
Our coop is 8 foot by 8 foot, and
we could easily put another 10.
Yeah, it depends on, you know, because our chickens the only time that our chickens are in the coop is at night. So if your chickens live their life in a coop and in a run, then you need so many square foot per chicken, and it averages about 2 square foot per chicken. But our chickens are, you know, outside all day long, and so the coop, it's a tall coop. And there's roosting poles and stuff, so they're able to spread out more. And then the run is like 8 foot by 16 foot, and that's just a secure run, you know, that they can be in to be secure. But you know, as long as we're here, we let them out during the day, and then they go in at night. So,
but something this small, like
something like this, you know, you could easily.
What is that? 18 feet long?
It's about
total?
16 foot long.
16.
Yeah.
Then you could put that easily in your backyard.
Yeah.
And then if your chickens had to live inside of it full time, it would be quite a bit of space.
Yeah. You know,
so
if that's the only space that the chickens had, you know, we could easily put 20 chickens in there. But because they're able to get outside and stretch their legs and eat outside, you know, we could put more chickens in there if we wanted to. And then we have another run that we're working on for more chickens, because we've got more chickens coming in next month.
They're fun.
that
The
we're
kids
getting.
love them. They're fun to watch. They're fun to interact with. And also, they're really good at eating.
Yeah, they eat bugs
ticks
and
and
stuff
bugs
like that. And the ducks, you know, we'll probably raise some of their their offspring to eat also, because they're also a good dual purpose. They lay a lot of eggs, but they produce a good meat bird. You know, not everyone likes duck. I think duck's pretty good myself.
But even if you just wanted the eggs are so
they have really big, rich eggs. I mean,
in protein.
Yes,
and they're
a lot
big
more
and they're
protein
healthy
than even a chicken. And that's the thing, you know, whether it's the egg or the meat, these birds are a lot healthier, so they're producing healthier. I mean, for those of you, if there's anyone out there that's never had a farm-raised egg where it's been free-ranged, there's a huge difference between that and just your cheap old, you know, Walmart egg that you buy. And so you can't really compare that cost. I mean, a lot of people try, you know, is it cost effective to raise your own birds when it comes to eggs and meat? You know,
you break even if you consider the cheap eggs.
Yeah,
and the cheap meat.
If you're just comparing the cost of this to, you know, the cheap birds, the cheap chicken, the cheap eggs, you know, it may break even. It may even cost a little bit more, especially the upfront. You know, you have your upfront costs, of course, but in the long run, I think it'll at least break even. May even come out a little bit of a head. But then you have to factor in that you're dealing with, you know, really high quality grass-fed, no chemicals, no, junk that's been
Hormone-free.
hormones, all that
Not
kind of stuff
they're
that's
grass
been.
fed. These the guys, but yeah, when we're talking about the bigger animals,
Yeah,
it's
they're a healthier animal,
uh-huh.
and it doesn't take that much. It's really not that difficult to raise them. It doesn't take that much space. To raise up that many. I mean, you could easily raise 100 meat birds a year. Easily raise 100 meat
and
birds
the
a
thing
year.
I like about us raising our own, but when we're eating it, in terms of health benefits, is that we get to be in control of what they're eating and how they're treated. That's very important to us as a family.
Yeah.
We want to make sure even birds that we're getting just to eat, they're treated, really well and cared for, and they're healthy, and so you're in a lot more control. And because of that, the quality of, I know he said the quality of the eggs, but the quality of the meat and the eggs is just greatly
There's one over
increased
here getting
by
ready to jump on my lap.
Yeah, greatly.
She's gonna jump in on this video.
That's one of the Australorps. But it's greatly increased because of we don't use medicated feed,
Yeah.
and we only supplement with feed. They are free ranging, and we have goats, and they're out in the field, and should we decide that we're going to eat our goats, it's
That's still debatable. The kids don't want to eat them, but we are getting sheep, and that kind of brings us to the next thing in meat is the bigger animals. Now, obviously, with bigger animals, your livestock, you're going to need more room. So if you just live in the city and you have a small backyard, you're probably not going to be able to raise, goats and sheep or anything like that. But if you even have just a little bit of land, I mean, I know people that raise sheep or goats on 1.5 acres, 2 acres of land, and they raise quite a bit. And they'll get, I was reading one the other day, actually, I think they had 1.5 acres, and they raise sheep, and they end up butchering about 8 lambs a year, raising them on that 1.5 acres of land.
I have a friend that has about a 1/4 acre, and she keeps a few sheep on
Yeah,
hers.
it doesn't take as much land as you think. And there are a lot of smaller breeds out there, small breeds of goats, small breeds of sheep, even small breed of cattle that work a lot better. So here's the thing: if you've never raised any type of cattle like that before, the first thing, and you're wanting to do it, so you've got the land, you're wanting to do it. One thing that I want to advise you on is don't go and buy your goats, your sheep, or your cows from some big production farm, or even a farm that may not have like that homesteading idea, that feeling of homesteading. They're more focused on modern big production farming, and here's the reason why. When you homestead, typically with your animals, you're going to be more hands-on with them. You're going to have more of a relationship. Sorry, I got a bug trying to fly up my nose. And you're going to touch them more. You're going to be around them more. And so you want an animal that's more docile, especially when you get into your bigger animals like goats and sheep and cattle. They can hurt you. They're big enough to hurt you. Mm-hmm. Even the small breeds, even those little bitty pygmy goats like we have, if they want to, ram you, they can do that and it can hurt. So you want to get ones that are a little bit more docile. And on these bigger farms that all they're doing is they're just raising up their cattle to send them off to the slaughter, or raising them to stick them in a barn to milk them dry and stick them back out in the field. They're not really hands-on. Their animals, they're not really used to being around people. And so if you've never really worked with them that much, then you go and you buy them, and you can get them cheap, or you can go to these auction houses and you can buy a calf sometimes for $50 or $100 at times at these auction houses. But they've never been around people before, and so it's going to be a lot more difficult. So I would encourage you, even if it costs a little bit more, especially starting up if you're real new at it, is getting your animals from small farms, little homesteads.
Impacted
the
at all?
quality
Like the quality
usually is, yes, but the biggest thing is they've been raised in an environment around people, and so they're not terrified of people. They, for instance, I knew this guy that raised sheep, and he had a huge flock, and of course he never interacted with them, and you could go out there and they were practically wild sheep. And he told me, he said, I would never sell my sheep to, like a homesteader or anything. He said, because my sheep, they don't know how to interact with people. If you're wanting, a few sheep for your homestead, don't go to some guy that's raising 1,000 head of sheep, because he's never interacted with those sheep, and those sheep they're practically wild. So there's a big thing that a lot of people kind of overlook when they're starting out homesteading. But as far as actually raising them for meat, goats and sheep are not difficult to raise. It doesn't take that much, as long as you put up a good secure fence, and they're hard on fences, so you need to research and make sure your fence is good. There are some small breed goats and sheep that are very take very, very little to maintain.
And the sheep we're getting, they don't even require a shelter.
Yeah, most sheep, a lot of sheep don't require shelter, especially the heritage, breed sheep. A lot of them, they don't require shelter, or very little shelter, a little lean-to at the most. And they're good at, like, birthing their own, lambs and stuff like that. And so you've got a couple of things here. Number one, a lot of people, at least in America, don't eat goat and sheep that much. It's just not a type of meat that most people eat anymore. It used to be really popular. Both goat and sheep used to be very popular meat here in the United States. It's just kind of fallen out of favor because the beef industry has taken over. But if you raise it properly, if you butcher it properly, if you know what you're doing, I assure you, goat and sheep are just as good as beef. It's a little different flavor, but it's really good. I hear people like, oh man, I butchered this goat and it tasted awful. Well, you probably either raised it wrong, or you butchered it wrong, or you cooked it wrong. Because if you do all those things right,
you waited too long.
Yeah, it's good. And it's not that hard. But here's the other thing. They're manageable when it comes to butchering. If you raise up a steer or a heifer and it weighs 1,200, 1,500 pounds or something like that, the average person, the average homestead, does not have the equipment to butcher an animal that size. So then you have to send it off to have it processed. And if you want to do that, that's fine, but you're not being as independent, as self-sufficient if you're sending it off to have it processed, because if things get worse in this world, you may not be able to do that. And they're already, at least around here and in other rural areas, people, they're flooded with business because people see the handwriting on the wall that the world's ending, and so they're butchering all these animals. And
it's like months.
Yeah, it's months. Around here, you can't get into a processor till next spring. Fall, spring usually, depending on where you go to. And so it's really good idea to get to where you can butcher your own. And goats and sheep, you could butcher your own goat and sheep. You could process it yourself. Even if you don't know how, there's lots of videos and books out there. It's not that difficult, and they're a small enough animal that you can do it on your own. You're not trying to butcher a 1,500-pound cow or something.
And then there's the mini cows too.
So that's the goats and the sheep. They're not that hard. I would encourage you looking into them. And then after that, then you have cattle. And there are some miniature breeds. There's some that are miniature, and then there's some that are just small breed, which are two different things. Your small breed cattle, like your Dexters. Dexters are really good. They are considered a family homestead type animal, so it's very common to find people that raise them for that purpose, meaning they're a little bit more, tame. They're not a very big animal. They're a good meat animal, and there's a lot of people that raise them for milk. There's the milking Dexter, and so if you get that, you can have a good amount of milk. They're not going to produce the amount of milk that a Guernsey or a Holstein, but they certainly will produce enough milk for your homestead. And then after that, you're going into, like, say, the Jerseys. Jerseys are great cattle, a little bit bigger sometimes, but they do have smaller breeds. And the thing is, with like the Dexters and the Jerseys, they're hardy with eating, kind of rough land. They don't really take a lot of care. A lot of these big production cows, they've gotten so used to generation after generation of being, dependent upon all this medication and all this feed. They really don't end up doing very good if you just turn them out into a rough old field and let them fend for themselves. Whereas your Jerseys and your Dexters and things in Highlands, they're real good at, you send them out into a field that's got some briars and it's not that great, and they'll fend for themselves. They're good hardy animals. And so the point is, in the long run, it doesn't take that much to become food, to become meat, self-sufficient on a homestead. You definitely want to plan for it. It's not something you just want to jump into right away, because it is a life, and so you don't want to do it wrong and then they end up dying. But
And research also, because we look
Yeah.
only at hardy, very
yeah,
hardy
yeah,
animals,
go
and like
look
the
at different
heritage
your
animals.
regions. Certain animals do better in different regions, whether it's arid or up north or south, different things like that. So do your research. I want to mention one animal real quick, because this video is going way longer than I wanted it to, but it was a lot to talk about. We don't eat it because of how we believe and how we eat, but it's rabbits. And I'm only going to mention it because there's other animals, homestead animals, that we don't eat, but I want to mention rabbits because it comes up a lot. Rabbits by far are the cheapest and easiest animal to raise that produce as much meat as they do for the dollar. That's just the flat out honest. It is that you can, it doesn't take that much to produce a lot of meat with rabbit. We don't eat it. We don't believe in eating it. Some of you may, but here's the thing. Rabbit is actually not a very good meat source. It doesn't produce a lot of protein. It doesn't have a lot of nutrition in the meat. And there's actually a thing of starvation by eating rabbit meat. If you just eat rabbit meat, you can starve to death because there's not enough nutrition in rabbit meat. So I would not really, not even because we don't believe in eating it. I'm just talking about, I don't recommend going into rabbits because of that. Yeah, you can produce a lot of meat, but it's not a real nutritious, food. Now, if you want to raise rabbits for their fertilizer, because it's amazing, that's fine. But, I think you could do better at doing chickens. You could, raise some chickens, and you have the eggs, and then you have some meat. And it's a lot more nutritious.
I feel like they're lower maintenance.
Yeah,
too.
they're lower maintenance. Rabbits it just doesn't produce a good quality of meat. That's the thing. It doesn't. It's not. Aside from the fact that it's an unclean animal, which is why we don't eat it. And some of you are the same way. I know that, but some of you aren't, and that's fine. That's your own business. It actually isn't a very healthy meat to eat. It's not a very nutritious. There's not a lot of protein, not a lot of nutrition. But so. Even if we did eat it, I probably wouldn't raise rabbits for meat for that purpose, because it's like you're producing a lot of meat that's really not that great. And I'd rather put my efforts in
and
something
with chickens, you get the eggs too, which
Yeah,
are very
you get the
nutrient
eggs,
dense, and
yeah.
then you get the shells, which you can use
shells,
as
you
fertilizer
get they
as
eat
well.
the bugs and stuff.
Yeah.
But if you want to raise a few rabbits for fertilizer, I guess that's fine. But anyways, the point of the whole video is that it's not that difficult to become meat independent, meat self-sufficient on your homestead. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people shy away from, because it seems so easy to go out there and do a garden, and it can be. And if the garden dies, you don't feel as bad because it's a plant. Whereas if if your whole chicken coop, they all die, then you feel really bad because it's it's a life. But if you're really, really serious about becoming more self-sufficient food, really look into some of these animals for meat production. It's not that difficult. I understand butchering is not everyone's favorite thing, but it's not as complicated as you think it is. It's something you can easily do. You can learn through books and videos of how to butcher and process your own meat. And it's something that we as people have done ever since we were created, and only in the last few decades have we stopped doing that and become disconnected from it.
Like if your garden goes under, you're not going to have the food
that's right
that you want. I think it goes longer. The protein,
right, and your garden, it only produces a certain time of the year, and then you have to preserve it. Whereas meat, if you wanted to, you could butcher. If we got really hungry, I could kill a couple of these chickens right now, and we would have food. But the garden hasn't produced enough food yet for us to live off of. But if times got tough, really bad, really quick, the goats and the chickens could get in our bellies fast. Whereas a garden, you have to, wait for that.
Get real fast.
So anyways, I encourage you to look into it because it's not as difficult and as scary as you might think. So work towards becoming meat self-sufficient. And for those of you that are or on that road to becoming meat self-sufficient, let us know what you think and how you guys do it, what you raise, that sort of stuff. Tell us some of your stories, because there's got some crazy ones, I'm sure you do. All right, thank you all for watching, and we'll catch you in the next video.